comes a new challenger!
Hello and welcome again to another set review with Challenger TCG. My name is Villionaire, joined once again by Alexander the Greatest. We're going to be going over the Chaos cards today, and if you haven't watched these before, we rate these cards on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. First up, we have Annie Stubborn for 4 energy and a Chaos power. This is a 3 might unit that says when you play me, return a spell from your trash to your hand.
Yeah, so at first glance, it's a 4 cost. It's only got 3 might. It does cost a power, so it's a little underwhelming to start, but it is a recycler, which, if you've ever played card games before, anything that picks up anything is typically at a baseline pretty good. Now, this only picks up a spell, but that's still very good. This is going to be great in any sort of control deck, especially decks where spells might be some sort of win condition. We have some really powerful spells that this synergizes with already. Things like Singularity, things like Falling Star. There's a lot of powerful spells that this could potentially recycle, and as the pool gets bigger, a card like this definitely gets better. Again, though, my biggest concern is this is a little high cost, power 4 and only 3 might, so it feels all right, but I would still want a card like this to either be a little cheaper or a little better statted. Ultimately, though, I think this card is pretty decent, especially that there's not a lot of ways to recycle cards in the game right now. I would give this card a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I like Annie a lot. I think I might be a little higher. I have played a lot more Annie, and I like her a lot as the chosen champion for Annie. We went over the red Annie already, and she's nowhere near as good as this one. I think I would give this Annie a 7. I just think recurring your spells is really good. She is underwhelming on stats, but the more spells that we get, as Alex said, or like combos that require specific spells to be played, I just think that this card's going to get better over time. We'll just have to see, though.
Oh shit! Yeah!
Next up, we have Flash for 2 energy. This is a spell at reaction speed that says move up to 2 friendly units to your base.
This is an interesting one because it almost works as like a pseudo counter pump spell, because many of the removal spells we see actually have to target cards at a location and not a base. And so what this does effectively is how cards work in this game is they actually check upon targeting, but also upon resolution to see if they're meeting the correct requirements. So if you move your guy to a base, one that has a target of a battlefield, that spell will now fizzle actually, and they won't be able to kill your guy. So this is a great way kind of to dodge those spells. It also helps you save your guys if they're going to win combat. So if your opponent moves to a battlefield and they're going to win the fight, you can just retreat those guys and kind of protect them. It's reaction speed, so you can do it in response to anything. I think this card is interesting. It screams more sideboard material to me, unless there's like a deck that's really trying to protect a specific unit. I actually think this card is pretty good. I'm going to give this card a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I like 6 for Flash. I think that this is one of the better cards to come out of Proving Grounds in this color. You really do want like a Targon's Peak or an Annie ability to really get value out of this, because you could just push a lot of points really early and not lose any units on the crackback. But if you don't have ways to ready your ruins, it's not really expensive. It only costs 2, but it still is just expensive enough that it's not that easy to fit into your curve. But it is a solid spell and really good against removal spells. Next up, we have Cemetery Attendant for 3 energy and a power. This is a 3 might unit that says when you play me, return a unit from your trash to your hand.
Again, it's a recursion effect. It's a 3 for 3, so it's a lot better statted, but it does still cost a power. Power on lower costed cards like this is typically a lot steeper because you're kind of trying to build up and you don't want to use these things in the early game. You don't want to be losing resources in the early game. However, it's still a recursion, which is pretty good. It can loop itself too, so if you have another one of it, it is like a infinite loop sort of, where you can just keep recurring each other. A lot of times actually you'll see in card games where cards of this nature can't actually pick themselves up, because a lot of times designers don't want you to be able to do stuff like that, but with this you actually can. So I mean, I think this card is actually pretty solid, kind of more or less the same as Annie. It's a little bit better statted, but it is limited to a unit, which oftentimes recurring a spell can be better than a unit. I like this card. I'm going to say it's the same as Annie, and I'm going to give this card a 6.
Yeah, I like 6 for the doggo. Hopefully someday we get Dog Tribal, because Warwick actually has the dog trait as well. So that gives me some kind of hope. But yeah, the card's just okay. Getting back a spell is great. It's just that power cost. You can't play this really early. Next up, we have the Ember Monk for 4 energy. This is a 4 might unit that says when you play a card with hidden, give me +2 might this turn.
This card seems solid to me, especially in the Teemo deck. I mean, this guy is just, it's a 4 for 4. It's already on rate, doesn't cost power. In any sort of hidden deck, this is going to be probably one of your best units. This guy just being able to get bigger and bigger with every hidden, being a 6 with a hidden. And it doesn't actually say where the hidden card has to come from, so it could come from the other battlefield too. And then in Teemo, you can have multiples, which is great. I mean, I think this card is actually really solid. It is, of course, limited to a hidden base deck, so I think that takes away from some of its potential. I would say this card at a baseline is like a 6 out of 10, but in a hidden deck, this card's like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I like 6 for the Monk. His ceiling pretty much is 10. Like, at best, right now, at least in the game, we have a Bandle Tree, which is a battlefield that lets you set 2 hiddens, and then theoretically you can have the other battlefield and set another hidden, so you can reveal up to 3 hiddens and make this guy into a 10, which is just really strong, really crazy. In Teemo, he's definitely going to shine quite a bit. Next up, we've got Fight or Flight for 2 energy. This is a spell that has hidden. It is action speed. It says move a unit from a battlefield to its base.
So just like the previous move card was good, this one's even better because now it can actually move your opponent's units, unlike the previous one, which could only move your own units. It also has the upside of being hidden, so you can actually play it for free if needed. It is only action speed, which is a downside, but because it has hidden, it can be reaction if you are able to control that battlefield. So there's a lot of utility to this card, and being able to force one of your opponent's units out is huge. Gives it a big upside. I'm really a big fan of this card. This is one of the better move cards, I think, in the game. I'm going to give this card a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with the 7 for the Fight or Flight. Don't have too much more to say. I think Alex pretty much covered it, but very good card. Next up, we have Gust for 1 energy. This is a spell at reaction speed that says return a unit at a battlefield with 3 or less might to its owner's hand.
This is your traditional, like, unsummon type effect. I mean, these effects are usually very hit or miss in games. If you've ever played Magic the Gathering, this effect's not that great. But if you've played a lot of other more tempo-oriented games, this effect is really good. And here in Riftbound, I think this card is super good. It's very tempo-oriented. It's very cheap, so your opponent plays a 3, you get to bounce it for 1. That's just basic good tempo. It's reaction speed too, so you can even use it to protect your own units if you want to. If you need to recur one of your cheaper units and protect it against a removal, you can do that as well. I think this is going to be actually a lot better in some of the slower decks. It's just like a way, like if you're playing like a ramp deck, for example, like MF, this is a great way to slow down your opponent who might be trying to aggro you while you either ramp up or try to get your Dazzling Aurora online. Ultimately, I think this is one of the best bounce cards you could ask for. It'd be hard to print something better than this outside of like, okay, now bounce a 4 or less, or it bounces anything. I think this card's a 7 out of 10, just a very, very solid tempo-based removal spell.
Yeah, if you watched our top 10 list, this card did squeak in. It was one of our honorable mentions that managed to make the top 10 list. It's a very, very good card. The reaction speed really is what pushes this to a higher level. Like, you can react to pump spells before they go off, essentially like canceling their pump spell and unsummoning their creature, which is just really good. And in this game, as Alex said, it's very tempo based, and this essentially negates like 2 points from your opponent, especially against if you're a slower deck, because your opponent's going to play their unit on turn 1, then the next turn they're going to swing in with it, trying to take that point, and then if you don't have a way to kill it on the crackback, they're going to take another point for holding. So this is not only unsummoning their creature, but also preventing 2 points from both the conquer and the hold. And that's just a ton of tempo and removal in a 1-cost spell. Very strong. Next up, we have Morbid Return for 2 energy. This is a spell at action speed that says return a unit from your trash to your hand.
So we talked about recursion being good, but this doesn't have a body behind it. And while it's 1 less than, say, the 3 costs we saw, and it doesn't cost a power, usually when you play things like this, you're going to want them to either cost 1 or you're going to want them to produce some sort of body. It's also action speed, which I don't think there's much of a difference between that and reaction speed. It's nice being action, so if you leave energy up for removal, say, and you don't want to play that, then you can pick a guy up. But Ultimately, I don't think this card is very good. Even if this card costed 1, I don't know, it'd be better, but I don't know how great it'd actually be. Maybe there's some sort of combo deck that wants this in the future. I could definitely see that, but I'm going to give this card like a 4 out of 10. I just don't think this is very good when you already have this option on a body.
Yeah, I think Morbid Return is just, it's okay. Getting back units if your deck really wants to recycle certain units, or, you know, you just wish that you could run 6 copies of a specific card that's probably going to die at some point, then maybe this card is for you, but I just don't think we have anything that wants to take advantage of that right now. I think 4 is fine. Next up, we have Mystic Poro. This is 2 energy and 2 might for a vision unit.
So continuing our cycle of Poros, this one is a 2 for 2, so it's on stat. It does have vision, so it is just kind of scrying you a card. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this. I think this is a pretty on-rate 2 with a little upside. It's just very average. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm going to give this card a 5. There's not much to say about it. It's just a very, like, just above a vanilla 2-drop.
Yeah, it's a 5. It's just a decently statted early guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, small upside. Next up, we have Rebuke for 2 energy and 2 power. This is a spell at action speed that says return a unit at a battlefield to its owner's hand.
So a slight maybe upgrade, we could say, on the Gust. It does cost 2 power. It's 2 energy, 2 power, and you can bounce anything at a battlefield, even your own. Some downsides is it is only action speed, unlike Gust, which is reaction speed. So you can't use this in response to, say, them playing a removal spell on your own unit. 2 power is a lot, though. Like, that's a lot for a spell, especially for a 2-cost spell in one of this caliber. Now, bouncing a card is a lot of tempo, though, and this bounces anything, but it still has to be at a battlefield, so it still has to be, like, attacking or already there. I could see in a very tempo-oriented deck where this could be a really good card, and I can see where effects like this are very powerful, but I think the cost and restrictions on this, all these little knobs they've turned where it's not reaction, guy has to be at a battlefield, 2 power, kind of really hold this card back from reaching its full potential. I'm going to give this card a 5, and it might... I could see it being better than that, as if the game gets more tempo-oriented, where you just don't care about your resources as much, you're just looking to bounce things, but I think this card is just a little too costly and too restrictive.
Yeah, I do agree with it being a little too costly. I think Rebuke is probably like a 6 for me. I do think that there is a lot of power there, especially if you're facing like Aurora decks, but if you're facing like a fast tempo deck, you don't really want this card at all. You're not going to want to set yourself back a full turn of channeling just to like unsummon a 2-drop. So it really depends on it's very matchup specific as to like where this card is going to be good, which is why it's seeing a lot of sideboard play and not a lot of main deck play. Next up, we have Ride the Wind for 2 energy and a power. This is a spell at action speed that says move a friendly unit and ready it.
This card is broken. This is probably the single best card in this color. I mean, this card is just absolutely incredible. Ride the Wind, so it's 2 and a power, but you move a friendly unit anywhere you want. So it's kind of like the reverse of Charm, where that one you get to move like one of your opponent's units in the points or out of the point. Well, now you get to do this with your own unit, but this also readies it instead. So for example, you could move an already tapped unit, a unit you played this turn, into a point to do combat. Then once it wins combat, it's untapped, so you could retreat it too, so it can't be killed. If it has ganking, you could move it to the other point too, so it can fight there as well. And it has especially good synergy with Vi, which is what we call the Vi the Wind combo, where you get to just pump her up to 1,000,000 by putting all the cards at the bottom of your deck. You have her, then move her in the point with Ride the Wind, and then she is ganking too, so she can move to the other point, and she's fighting at both these points for however many cards you are able to move to the bottom of your deck. But this card just has so much utility. It's action speed too, so you can even do it in response to your opponent potentially trying to do combat somewhere. I mean, this card is just absolutely incredible. It's removal. It's everything all in one. It's removal. It can dodge removal. It's just everything about this card is incredible. It readies a guy. I mean, it's just so versatile, so good. I'm going to give this card a 9 out of 10. I think this is probably the best card we're going to see in this color.
9's pretty good. I think Ride the Wind's probably going to be an 8 for me, but I do think that this card is really strong. It's pretty much the only card in the game we have that can score points on the opponent's turn. Like, I think one of the devs recently there was a ruling thing and they were saying like, yeah, there's not really a lot of ways to start combat on your opponent's turn, but this card is one of the ways. And just being able to essentially like cheat the typical point tempo system of like being capped at 2 points until your following turn is really crazy, especially if you can do it on something like, say, an Ahri or other units like Ahri, if we ever get those that like give you additional points for holding and things like that. Like there's so many ways to use this, and even just using it to dodge like a battle that you want to get out of at worst isn't a bad use anyway. It's very versatile like Charm, other than that you not being able to move your opponent's guys. I like this card. Next up, we've got Sai Scout for 6 energy and 5 might. This is a vision unit that says you may play me to an open battlefield.
So playing to an open battlefield's all right. It does get you a point right away, which is cool. It's like a kind of like a fake, almost like a fake accelerate card. It does have vision too, which is kind of just like a little bit of icing on the cake, but it's a 6 for 5, so it's still a bit understated. I think this card's not that great. I mean, again, it does let you score a point right away, but that's only to an open battlefield. And at this point in the game, there's oftentimes not a lot of those. And if one of the battlefields is open, it's probably because you paired this with some sort of removal. I don't think this card is all that great, to be honest. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. It's all right. Like, it's fine, but I don't think it's great.
Yeah, I think 4 is fine for the Scout. I think if this was cheaper or could happen earlier, like we'll see some other units later that don't cost quite this much that have a very similar effect, and those units do see some play because they're pretty cheap. But like Alex said, just at the point where you have 6 runes to cast this, if your opponent doesn't have battlefields that they're holding, it's probably because last turn they just scored points and moved all their units back, so they have a ton of units to hit you back with on the next turn, and you're basically going to lose your 6 mana play, so not a huge fan. All right, next up we've got Shipyard Skulker for 3 energy. This is a 3 might unit, vanilla.
I mean, this is a vanilla 3 for 3. These exist with effects. This card is pretty awful. Like, I'm tempted to give it a 1 out of 10 because there's already 3 for 3s, but I've seen like 2 for 3s that have effects that are somehow like worse than having the extra stat. So we'll stay on flavor, and I'll give this a 3 out of 3 just since we're rocking with the 3s on this one.
I'll give it a 2, and I hate vanillas. Next up, we've got Sneaky Deckhand for 3 energy and 2 might. This is a unit that says you may play me to an open battlefield.
So this is a lot more reasonable version of the card we saw before. Because it's so cheap, this is the point of the game where you are going to see open battlefields. So like if you're going second, this card's excellent. It scores you a point right off the bat. It is a little understated, so it is possible that if your opponent went first, there's a good chance that they might actually be able to at least trade with this or even potentially win the fight against this. But it's still great in an aggro deck because you do get to just score a point right off the rip without kind of skipping a beat. I do think this card is good, and I think in more aggressive decks, this card could definitely see a good amount of play. I'm going to give this card a 6 out of 10. I think it's good.
Yeah, I like 6 for the Deckhand. Like Alex said, especially if your opponent happens to miss their turn 1 play, then this is huge to slam this on 2. You get right in the point. You're probably going to get a hold point. You just scored 2 points off of your first turn play, like right from the jump. That's just so powerful. Next up, we've got Stealthy Pursuer for 4 energy and a power. This is a 4 might unit that says when a friendly unit moves from my location, I may be moved with it.
This is a harder one to evaluate. She's a 4 for 4, but she costs a power, which is kind of rough. I guess it's kind of nice because she can do combat. Like if you move a guy to do combat, she gets to move with it and like kind of stack up on that point. I think the applications of that are oftentimes few and far between. Like the turn she gets played, okay, fine, she can do combat with something else to win a fight. And I think maybe there's a little bit of upside there, but I'm not really a fan of this card, to be honest. The applications seem kind of niche to me. I'd have to think more about this, to be honest, but it's kind of a weird effect. I'm going to give this card 4 out of 10. I don't think this is that great. I think the power cost really holds it back to, like, maybe if there wasn't a power cost, I could definitely see this card being a lot better, but having to pay that, I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, I like 4 for the Pursuer. I agree. The power cost is really what holds this card back. I think if it was just a 4 for 4, it would be reasonable. You're pretty much only seeing this play in Yasuo, if at all, because of how easily he can move units around. So he just gets to like move multiple units at once with his ability, and that's pretty good. But outside of Yasuo, you're pretty much never playing this card. Next up, we have Undercover Agent for 5 energy and a power. This is a 5 might unit with Death Knell, discard 2, draw 2.
So we've seen these effects before, and we talked about how discard engines can be good, especially when you're trying to work with some sort of discard synergy. The biggest issue this card has is 2 that I see. So 5 for 5, that's great stats, but it costs a power. That's the first issue. The second issue is it being a death knell. Now, you do get to draw the 2 cards, even if you don't discard 2 cards, but where this poses a problem is, unlike with the when played effects, this one, your opponent has some agency over when you discard the 2 cards. So if you're holding, like if your opponent knows you're holding something good, or you've been holding up energy the whole game trying to, like, you're broadcasting a spell or something, your opponent could actually kill this to make you discard 2 because they know what's in your hand and you don't have a choice in that. And because you lack the agency to decide when you discard all the time, like your opponent gets some control over that, I actually think that makes this card significantly worse because they can potentially mess up your hand when you only have 2 cards in it, even if you get to draw the 2 back. And because of that, I'm going to give this card like a 3. I really don't think this card is very good. The power cost really holds it back too. It just, I don't think this is a great card.
Yeah, I agree. I think a 3 is fine for this card. I am not a big fan. This card, we just dropped a video going over the starter deck upgrade guide. This card is in the Jinx starter deck, and this is one of the first cuts that I made because the card is just very unimpressive. Next up, we've got Acceptable Losses for 1 energy. This is a spell at action speed that says each player kills one of their gear.
Actually, I think this card's excellent. It's going to double as gear removal. Most of the time, your opponent's only going to have 1 gear you want to kill, and if you're playing this card, you probably don't have any gear. It's just like the cheapest gear removal you can get. It's also action speed too, which can be useful. You can leave up energy to, like, do something, and if you don't, you just kill their gear. I think this is probably one of, if not the best gear removal in the game right now. Like I said, you're rarely going to kill one of your own gears with it. I'm going to give this card a 6 out of 10. It's as good as you can get for gear removal, I think.
Yeah, I like 6 for Acceptable Losses. We'll see some more gears in purple later too that you don't even necessarily... Purple has a lot of gears that you get benefit from them dying. So there is some decks right now that are even just playing this to actually kill your own gears. But for the most part, especially in like against Dazzling Aurora, I mean, having a 1 mana answer is just really good. And if you are a gearless deck, then this card basically just reads kill a gear, which is good. Next up, we have Fading Memories for 4 energy and a power. This is a spell that says give a unit at a battlefield or a gear temporary, which is you kill it at the start of its controller's beginning phase before score.
This is interesting. This one kind of functions as a spot removal. It does cost a power, but it is kind of like a pseudo spot removal. And it also has the upside of also hitting a gear as well as a unit. Now, the downside being it has to be a unit at a battlefield, which I think holds it back a little bit. I think this card would be pretty crazy, though, if it could hit units in base. I do see a world where this card does see play, especially if we get like a deck that's in purple that's looking to just be like a more control-based deck. I think this card is fine. It's a very okay spot removal, but having that gear upside, I think, actually does a lot for it. I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 10. It seems like a decent removal. It's nothing too crazy, but I could definitely see this being played.
Yeah, I think the fact that there's like no restrictions whatsoever, the fact that this can kill 10 drops, 12 drops, like whatever, is really, really strong. And then, of course, the fact that it can also hit gear, and one of the best gear in the game right now is a huge, 9-cost gear. The fact that this can hit Aurora or the bombs that Aurora drops just makes this a really good card into those decks. But a solid card all around. I think I like 6 for it. I'm pretty high on this one. Next up, we have Pack of Wonders for 2 energy. This is a gear that says exhaust, return another friendly gear, unit, or hidden card to its owner's hand.
This card's kind of cute. It does have some synergies with some of the other gears in this color that we'll talk about later. Being able to return a hidden card is kind of cute too, because if you have a hidden card set and you're gonna lose the battlefield and you don't want to activate the hidden, it can actually send that card back. This is like a very combo-y type card, I feel like, and it seems all right for what it's trying to do. Again, it's not like incredible by any means, but it's definitely like a combo piece, and I think the ceiling on this could potentially be higher as we see more gears that want to be bounced, or if you need to protect your gears or protect your hiddens. I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 10. It seems like a good combo piece. It's nothing too crazy, but I definitely can see the utility and use cases here for this card.
Yeah, I like 5 for the pack. I think that the fact that it hits so many different things is really what makes it a pretty solid card, and I could see a world where, especially with all the different on-plays, like we've already seen a fair amount of on-plays in this color, like picking up units, picking up spells. So this helps you pick up the things that pick up things. So you could just create a really good value engine. The game is pretty fast right now, so we might not be able to do that quite yet, but I could see a future where those combos even get better and more consistent over time. And as we get more and more strong on play abilities too, especially if we get some like really busted ones that you want to trigger every single turn, then this card's going to gain even more value. Next up, we have Scrap Heap for 2 energy. This is a gear that says when this is played, discarded, or killed, draw 1.
This is an interesting one, and I can see where this could create like a pseudo draw engine. It is just a 2 to draw 1, which is somewhat a little below rate, but it does have the upside of like, if you discard this, you draw. If it gets killed, you draw. So there is like, at best, this card is probably going to be like a draw 2, like a +1 most of the time, which a 2 for 2 is on rate, but you do have to work a little extra hard for it. I think this card is okay. I can see this card getting a lot better though in decks that have a lot of synergies with this, where you're just like, this is just like a means to trigger some sort of discard. Ultimately though, I don't think it's all that impressive, and I don't see as of right now a reason to really play this. I'm gonna give this card a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think Scrap Heap's okay. I'll probably give it a 5. I just think right now we just don't have a lot of synergies that work with it. Like we saw that card earlier that both players kill a gear. So like that's decent. If you played it out already, now you don't care if you sack it because you're getting to draw another card on top of that. You would think that this might be good in a Jinx deck where you're discarding a lot of cards, but Jinx wants to go to no cards. She doesn't want to actually draw more cards for discarding cards. So if we get more discard synergy based deck in the future that doesn't want to have specifically one card in hand every turn, then I could see Scrap Heap gaining more value. But right now, I think 5 is okay. It's all right. Next up, we've got Stack Deck for 1 energy. This is a spell at action speed that says look at the top 3 cards of your main deck, put 1 into your hand, and recycle the rest. This
card's excellent. This is just like the cheapest form of cycle you can get, and if you've played card games before, if you've played Magic especially, you've seen these effects before. In Magic, they're even better in my opinion, but here it's still very good. These type of cycle effects, when they're cheap, especially when they can be played at some form of instant speed, are just incredibly good, especially in combo decks, in decks where you're trying to like ramp up and find pieces. Just any deck that's looking for something specific, this is just like the perfect way to do that. This is exactly what you're after. I think this card is very, very good. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think you'll see this in pretty much any combo deck ever that can afford to play it. And then we do see it in a lot of the MF ramp decks as well.
Yeah, pretty much every purple deck right now is probably playing some amount of stack decks. I think 7 is very good for this card. This card is really strong, especially on the draw. Like, going first, it doesn't feel great missing your turn 1 play, but a stack deck makes you feel at least a little bit better. But going second, when you can still make your turn 1 play and play a stack deck, is really where you feel really good. Or in, again, Annie or Targon's Peak decks, because this is action speed, you get to just like filter these out on your opponent's turn whenever they do things. And that's really where this card shines, is the fact that it's action speed. Next up, we have the Syren, which is a 2-mana gear. For 1 energy and an exhaust, you move a friendly unit at a battlefield to your base.
So it's like a way to like fake protect your guys, but like the fact that this costs an energy every time you do it is kind of makes it a lot worse in my mind. You have to tap it, so you can't do multiple times a turn. It only does friendly units. It just, like, it is a way, it's a nice way to protect your guys, which I could see a strategy where that is valid. You're just like moving guys to points and then moving them back and protecting them. Like maybe guys that have like a very big assault value, like if they printed like a deck of those where you're just like attacking and trying to pull your guys back and just keep attacking for a lot of power. I could see that where that has some application, but having to pay 1, it only working once a turn, all these restrictions, it costs 2 initial investment too, and it's a gear. I mean, this is like fine, but I actually don't like this card all that much. I like am struggling to see where there would be a lot of value in this, maybe against some sort of like control deck maybe, but like I could see maybe like against a control deck where they're just trying to remove cards and those only hit things at battlefield, so you can kind of move those guys out of the base and protect them. So maybe there is some upside there, like it could be a sideboard card against those types of decks, but again, just the cost and the restrictions, it's so much. I'm gonna give this card a 4 out of 10. I'm not feeling it. Maybe sideboard, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I think 4 is perfect for the Syren. I just think that, yeah, it maybe in the late game, like you can pull something back by just playing this because you can activate it right away. Gears don't come in tapped, so maybe you can like save something, and so you kind of are getting the value of a first mate, but you're not really, because the first mate comes with like a body. This doesn't have a body, and if you're playing this early, like you're playing this instead of playing a body, so then you still have to next turn play a body, then wait a turn for it to untap so that you can send it to the battlefield and finally get value out of your Syren. It's just a little too slow and clunky, so I think the effect is strong, but it doesn't really feel that good on a gear. Next up, we have Traveling Merchant for 2 energy and 2 might. This is a unit that says, when I move, discard 1, then draw 1.
Yeah, so this is your average 2-drop. It's a 2 for 2, but it does have the upside of when it moves, you get to discard and then draw. Again, like many of these cards, you don't actually have to discard to get the draw, which is nice. But on top of that, we've talked before about how good discard enablers are, and this one is no exception. And it's now on a really cheap on-curve unit, on-stat unit for 2. So I just think this card is solid as far as 2-drops go. It's pretty much at the height of what I would give a 2-drop. Just like, it's kind of the same as any of the other discard cards we've talked about with all these synergies and enables. It has the upside of drawing, and it doesn't actually have to move to a battlefield. It can actually move back to your base too to trigger this. The one downside is this is mandatory, so if you only have like 1 or 2 cards in your hand and you want to hold both of them, you're going to have to think twice before moving this. Ultimately, though, I think this card is pretty good. I would give it a 6, which is pretty much as high as I give 2-drops.
Yeah, I think 6 is good for the Merchant. This is definitely one of the better 2-drops in the game. One of the only playable 2-drops in this color, probably, and I just do think that the discard synergy, like Alex says, is really strong, especially in Jinx, which is already a very tempo-based deck, so you want early cards that you can play that help you get those discard synergies off. I like 6. All right, next up we have Treasure Trove for 2 energy. This is a gear that says, when this leaves the board, draw 1 and channel 1 Ruin Exhausted, and you can also pay a Chaos Power and exhaust it to kill it.
So with the pack that we saw before, this is kind of where you're going to get that synergy we were talking about, where this doesn't have to die either, it just has to leave the board. So you can kind of create this ramp draw engine endlessly with that card, where you just keep sending this back and drawing your card and channeling your ruin. But even at worst, without that, it does have the ability to just be a filter where you have to pay the power, but then you get it back and you draw a card, so it's fine. It's just like a fake filter at the very least. And then as they print more cards that might be able to cycle this back to your hand, this card is going to get better and better. I think this card is fine. It is a little slow still, but it is like a way to just like keep ramping up every turn. I think this card's fine. It's like a 5 out of 10. It's nothing too special, but it does have some synergies, and it does create like this little engine in combination with some other existing cards we've seen.
Yeah, I like 5 for the Trove. Again, this is another one that can combine with that 1 mana spell, that just another gear that you don't really care having it in play if it dies, because you actually get upside from it dying. And like Alex said, at worst, this is just a really convoluted draw a card, but the upside that it gets with working with these other cards, like the ones that kill your own gears or the ones that send your gears back to hand, really make this a solid combo piece. Next up, we have Whirlwind for 4 energy and a power. This is a spell that says, starting with the next player, each player may return a unit to its owner's hand.
So this card is like a multiplayer card. It's not a great one, but it is a multiplayer card. So for 4 energy and 1 power, each player gets to return a card to its owner's hand. So this is supposed to be like a fun card, sort of. So they can, like, your opponent gets to then choose one of their cards or one of your cards and return it to the owner's hand, and then you get to do the same. This is kind of like, this is just like a fun, like, 4-player style card. In Standard, I don't see a whole lot of relevance. Like, they get to bounce one of yours, you get to bounce one of theirs, but you had to pay the 4 energy and 1 power to do that. We've already seen, if you want to bounce one of your opponent's units, we've already seen better things that can do this for that. It's not action or reaction speed, so it's just slow. I'm gonna give this card like a 2 out of 10. I'm sure in 4-player mode it's a lot better, but here, this card, like in singles, this card is just, I don't see any application. And even in 4-player mode, it's just like a fun card. I don't actually know how good it is, but like, yeah, I don't see this card. This card's like a 2 out of 10 for me. It just does not seem good.
Yeah, I think, oh man, this card is so bad. I think I'll give it a 2 as well, but like Alex said, even in multiplayer mode, like, What if the other 3 players just like politic and they all decide to triple target you? Like you just negged yourself so hard and they're just like, oh, nice card, idiot. Like we're just gonna all send all three of your cards back to your hand. Like, yeah, I don't know.
And even if you have like nothing on board, they could all just also agree like, all right, we're just gonna bounce nothing. Like,
right, and then you just tapped out to do nothing for a turn.
Yeah, I don't know. Seems questionable.
Next up, we have the Zaunite Bouncer for 4 energy and 2 power. This is a 2 might unit that says when you play me, return another unit at a battlefield to its owner's hand.
So this is pretty much just the bodied version of the spell we saw before, which was... This is literally just it. It is the same exact... It reads exactly the same way, except now you get a 2 power body out of it for 2 more energy. I didn't think that card was very good, but at least that card could be played at action speed. I think this card is actually worse because it doesn't have action speed. The body is only 2 power, which is nothing. It can't really win any fights for the most part. And it costs 2 more energy now too, which just doesn't seem worth the energy to me. Just not for these stats. It only hits something at a battlefield too, just like the spell. So I think this is just like, I don't want to even call it lazy design because it just like they just took an effect that already existed and they said, what if we put a body on it? That happens all the time. But like, I just don't see a reason to play this card unless you really needed the body. I'm going to give this card like a 3 out of 10. I don't think it's very good. Maybe this effect is better than I'm giving it credit for. Like I could see like maybe in a tempo oriented style deck where you just want more of these, this does get better. Like maybe this could be a 4 or 5, but I'm gonna give it a 3. I don't like this.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this card. I really feel like that the effect is very strong and I just feel like they negged it too much. Like I don't think that it's quite as strong as they believe that it is, and I feel like they could have given this card more might and it might have actually been a playable card, but because it's just so weak, like Alex said, it's just like, even if you're bouncing their biggest guy, like any basic unit is going to be able to trade with you. This trades on 2 drops. Like it's just not very good. I'll give it a 4 just because I think the bounce is strong, but I don't think I would want to play this card very often.
I will decide the way.
We shall see.
Next up, we have Kayn Unleashed. This is a 6 energy, 1 power unit for 6 might. And it has ganking, and if I have moved twice this turn, I don't take damage.
So it's a 6 for 6, which is on rate, but it costs a power. Ganking's like fine. Ganking's like just like always icing on the cake most of the time, unless there's a really big synergy. This card's effect is not very good. You have to move this guy twice in a turn just for an effect that doesn't really do much. I don't take damage, which is like, okay, great. So you need the assistance of another card to even make this work. So you need a way to like untap this. And then, you can now move him somewhere where he like won't take damage in the fight. But how many times is that going to be applicable that the not taking damage matters? It has to be like a fight that you're tying with. Like if you're moving into a point that has exactly 6 where he needs to not take the damage, or you're moving into a point with like another guy, I guess, and you just don't want him to die or something. But like you have to work extra hard for this effect that I don't even think is super relevant. He does have ganking on a 6/6, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a 6/6 for a power with ganking, like almost a vanilla. I'm going to give this card like, I want to give it a 3. Maybe that's too critical, but I'll give it a 4, I guess. Like, I just do not think this guy is good.
Yeah, this card's basically only playable in Yasuo, which has the guaranteed, like, I can move a guy to a unit. Move a guy to a battlefield with his legend effect, and then you can use Kayn's ganking from there to move to the other battlefield, and then he triggers really easily. But if you don't have access to a Yasuo ability on your legend every single turn, then this is actually costing you cards from your hand, like Ride the Wind and stuff like that, which you don't want to be using just to like trigger this. It's really not worth it. But I think in Yasuo, this card shines. May even be like a 6 in a Yasuo, but I think 4 is fine normally because you're almost never triggering this.
Even when you do trigger it, I don't know how many situations this effect is going to be applicable. Like I said, you have to like, he has to be like dying or something. And like, how often is this like guy dying, but also moving to somewhere where he's going to win the fight? Like, I don't know. It seems too niche for me.
Next up, we have Kog'Maw Caustic for 3 energy and a power. This is a 1 might unit that says Death Knell. Deal 4 damage to all units at my battlefield.
Yes, the classic landmine. You just stick this on a point, and if they want to get in there, he explodes. The problem here is, 1, he costs 3 and a power, which is already pretty costly, especially on a cheap unit. He only has 1 might, which you might think, okay, that's what I'm looking for a guy whose function is to just explode. But because of that, he can't actually really win any fights. He can go into a point and explode too, so you can use him as an offensive bomb, so to speak. But the problem is that in this game right now, we're seeing people are not really top-loading points with a lot of guys. So AoE in one battlefield is not all that great. What you want for AoE is for it to hit either both battlefields or be able to hit units at base as well. This does neither of those things. And I think the best that you're going to manage out of this is he's going to just effectively be a 4 might, 3 cost and a power, or sorry, a 5 might, 3 cost and a power, which, I mean, that's okay at a baseline. That's fine, but he can't actually win any fights. So like he's just exploding most of the time anyways. Ultimately, I'm going to give this card, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, but I do see potential, maybe even 5. Like this could be like a 5 or a 6 where like at some point, let's see, there is a deck that's trying to place a bunch of guys in the point. This guy will be incredible. He will be one of the best sideboard cards against those types of deck. And I'll give him a 5. I'll be generous. I'll give him a 5, but I just don't think he's very good right now.
Yeah, I was going to give Kog'Maw a 5 as well. Pretty much, again, another card that you really need like a move synergy to unleash this guy like right away. Because he's kind of telegraphed if your opponent sees that you just played this out. Like they're definitely not going to stack up the battlefield, and then he's got to wait a turn before he can go in. But if you have a way to move this guy right away, like say a Yasuo Legend or like a card like Ride the Wind or something, obviously again you probably don't want to be using your Ride the Wind for this, but if you do have one of those kind of abilities, can move a guy in right away, then you can get some value out of this by being sneaky with it. But if you're not being able to be sneaky with it, it's kind of weak. Next up, we have Maddened Marauder for 5 energy and 4 might. This is a tank unit. It says when you play me, move a unit from a battlefield to its base.
Get the trash, eat the trash. It's a little throwback for those of you that played Runeterra. I used to love this guy, actually. So if this card is kind of the same as a lot of the other move type cards, it's a little bit better though because it does get to move one of your opponent's units, and it has like tank is just like almost like Vision to me, where it's just like a little icing on the cake, kind of like it's fine. It's not incredible, but it does add a little something extra, so the card's not a straight up vanilla. It's a 4 for 5, which is a little understated, but it does let you push points. It also lets you retreat your own guys. I think this card is like fine. It has just enough stuff going on to say this card is like pretty average. So I'm going to give this guy a 5 out of 10. I don't think he's all that great, but I like he's got enough little things going on that I think like between the tank, being able to push their guys out, being able to push your guys out, he's just like okay.
Yeah, I think in like a limited format, I'd be okay, drafting this guy. Like he's got just enough good things going on and no power cost, most importantly, that like you don't feel bad just having a couple of these in your deck. I don't think he's going to be seeing constructed play, at least at this current time, but he's an okay card. Next up, we have the Mindsplitter for 7 energy and 2 power. This is a 7 might unit that says when you play me, choose an opponent, they reveal their hand, choose a card from it, and they discard that card.
Another one of the best bombs in this color. I mean, this card is just, it's incredible. It's one of the best bombs in the game, in my opinion, because it has the unique effect of actually being able to look in your opponent's hand, which I believe only one other card in the game does that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and it's not in this color. So it is able to rip anything from their hand. It's a 7 for 7, so it's on rate. It does cost 2 power, but that's a cost I'm more than happy to pay for this powerful effect. This sees a lot of play in any purple Aurora deck because it's just so powerful, just being able to tear your opponent's hand apart over and over again. I think this card is great. I think it's one of the best bombs in the game. I think it's one of the best cards in this color. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. This card is just overall, it's solid. It's also a dragon too, so if there's ever any dragon synergies, he will be right in there with them.
Yeah, I like 8 for the Mindsplitter, pretty much for all the reasons Alex said. 7 is such a huge breaking point in this game too. Like, doesn't die to Riptide Rex, doesn't die to Singularity, doesn't die to Double Falling Star. Like, the fact that this guy is 7 really, really pushes him over the top. but his effect is also just so strong, and unlike that other card that strips cards from your opponent's hand, this guy can hit anything, not just spell or not just non-units. So yeah, just such a powerful card. Takes your opponent's best card and provides you with a really sizable bomb. Next up, we have Fortune Buccaneer for 4 energy and a power. This is a 4 might unit that says you may play me to an open battlefield. Friendly units may be played to open battlefields.
So we've already seen this effect, and like we discussed before, I think this effect's a lot better on earlier units. Now, granted, this one usually can't be played turn 1 unless your opponent is playing, or you are playing the battlefield that gives both players an extra resource at the start of the game, and you go second. But I still think she's early enough to abuse an effect like this, and she gives it to all of your units. So in the early game, there is like a world where you can you play this on turn 2 to an open battlefield that hasn't been conquered yet. You get that. And now if your opponent isn't able to conquer that other battlefield, or you're able to force them out, you can start taking the points. It's a 4/4, which is on rate. The power holds it back a little bit, but I still think this card is pretty okay, giving that blanket effect is pretty good, especially if you have a removal heavy deck where you're actually able to kill guys in the point without attacking and then play a guy there, or you're playing an aggressive deck that has a lot of cheaper units that will pair in with those removals. I think she's a 6 out of 10. I just think this is a solid unit.
Yeah, I like 6 for Fortune. I think solid unit, pretty much for all the reasons you said. This is also a champion unit. Fortune typically uses the body champion instead of the chaos one, but I do think that this one is at least sideboardable or really good into other matchups, so I like this card a lot. Next up, we have Nocturne Horrifying for 4 energy and a power. This is a 4 might unit with ganking that says when you look at the top cards of your deck and don't draw them, and see me, you may play me for a power.
They have to be very careful with effects like this. Very, very careful, because this is an insanely powerful effect. I mean, you're summoning a guy for free, a guy who's a 4/4, so it's pretty well statted, even though it's like coming in play for free. Usually when you get things for free, they're going to be smaller. Like if this guy was a 2, I'd say, okay, this is like fine. It's just like a body you get for free, whatever. But this is a 4 might, and it has ganking, so they just added a little extra onto it too. I think the ceiling on this is so high depending on how they design. I hate seeing free things like this, especially printed early in a game's life cycle. That being said, there aren't a whole lot of decks that can abuse this right now. I don't believe there's a yellow-purple champion as of now, so you can't actually baited hook with this. That would be one of the strongest things that I would look out for, is whenever you can actually do both this and baited hook. Right now, I would say the power level of this card is I give this card like a 7 out of 10, but I could actually see it getting a lot higher. Like just being able to endlessly spam this guy out, especially if there's a way to recycle this back in your deck from your bin, or put it on top of your deck, or endlessly just keep summoning this over and over and over again. There's no legendary rule in this game either, so you can have as many of these out as you want. I think this card is really, really good, and I think the ceiling on this could get a lot higher.
Yeah, I think the Nocturne is fine. I think that the problem is if we're rating it in a vacuum, I just don't know how many times we're summoning this guy for free. It does require quite a bit of build around to get that, but the effect is really powerful. We already have seen, we have stacked deck that lets you look at the top 3, so if you just find this guy in a stacked deck on turn 1, now you have a turn 1 play, and it's way above rate for a turn 1 play. But I do think that in a vacuum, he's just a fine, serviceable unit. I think I'm going to give him a 6. Next up, we've got Rhasa the Sunderer for 10 energy and a power. This is a 6 might unit that says I cost 1 less for each card in your trash.
We talk about kind of discard payoffs, potentially self-mill payoffs in the future, and this guy would be it. If there was a really good way to turbo discard cards from your own deck, or if there was enough discard synergy, I do see this guy getting a lot better. But it would have to be a way in which you could summon this guy for consistently on like turn 2, maybe turn 3. He is, like I said, beat sticks are good when they come out early, but they become less and less powerful as the game goes on. So like a 10 drop, for example, could be a 20/20, but that's much less impactful than a 3 drop that's a 5/5. Just there becomes easier ways to deal with these cards the later the game goes on. All that being said, I see the potential here. I just don't think it's there yet. And because of that, I'm actually going to give this card a 3. There'd have to be some really crazy synergy to make this guy good. And when it gets to that point, I could see this guy being as high as like a 6, 7, maybe even an 8. But right now, he's not there.
Yeah, I agree. This guy's pretty much a build around, and even in like the Jinx decks and stuff, it's pretty hard to get like 5 or 6 cards into your trash in the first few turns. And like this guy, you really want to have like 7 or 8 cards for him to actually be like really, really good. Like you want to play this guy for almost nothing. And that can happen in the later games. And when it does happen in the later games and you're able to just like cast this guy for just a power, that's really strong. That's really good. But I just don't think in a vacuum that this guy is going to trigger that ability too often. And if he's coming in at like a 6 for 6, you're just getting an on rate guy, actually a little bit below rate because you're still having to pay a power. So I'll give him a 4 just for the potential, but he's not that great right now. Next up, we have Soulgorger for 8 energy and 2 power. This is a 5 might unit that says when you play me, you may play a unit from your trash, ignoring its energy cost. You must still pay its power cost.
So this is a very solid bomb for this color, one of the better ones too. It's just like a way to spam out bodies. It is very power intensive because a lot of the time I imagine you're going to be bringing back a bomb that's going to cost you 1 or 2 power on top of the 2 power that this costs you already. So you are paying 3 to 4 power total. But he is still a somewhat serviceable body for a guy who's putting another body in play. So he's an 8 for 5. And 5 is still fine. You're still going to be able to win fights and push points with that. On top of the fact that you're going to be able to bring back another large body. This is like kind of ideal for reanimator style strategies, but it's also very good in any purple Aurora deck where you're just like, you have a deck full of bombs and you're just recurring those bombs. I think this guy is very solid. I think he's got a lot of applications and he's one of the better bombs in this color. So I'm going to give this guy a 7 out of 10. I think he's just another solid bomb.
Yeah, I like 7 for the Soulgorger. Just like we said, there's already a lot of recursion in this color, but now we get to see like, oh, I get to play the guy for free rather than just add it back to my hand. And that is a way more powerful effect, especially when you have like so much discard synergies in this color. Like it's not going to be hard for you to ensure that you discard whatever bomb you want, even like 12 cost cards, and then just like use this guy to bring them back. So I do think that Soulgorger is really, really good reanimator. It's a little bit slow. It's not seeing a ton of play outside of those Aurora decks right now, but I could see that changing in the future, especially if we get more impactful bombs that we can guarantee to put in our bin and then bring back.
Hey, you earned the losing badge!
Next up, we have Teemo Scout for 2 energy and 1 might. This is a champion unit with hidden, and it says when you play me, give me +3 might this turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is like a solid 2-drop, probably on the upper side of what 2-drops can be. It's also a champion unit, and this is going to probably be the Teemo of choice for a lot of people. I mean, I think this is just a good card. It's a good hidden. Being able to function as kind of like a pseudo pump when you already control a battlefield to protect that battlefield is pretty solid in my eyes. And then you're also able to play it for free there. It doesn't do a whole lot if you don't play it for hidden, which is the downside. So this card is effectively always going to cost a power. But again, I think this is just like as good as a 2-drop can get for its power level. I'm going to give this card a 6. It's a good 2-drop.
Yeah, I think 6 is good for Teemo. This is going to be Teemo's premier champion. It's worth noting that you can hide from the champion zone. So even if this is in your champion zone, you could still play it straight to your hidden. And basically, it's just like Alex said, a combat trick on a body and it's a really good combat trick. Like there's not a lot of things that can deal with +4, especially in the early game. Like you basically just take your first point, set this guy, and you're probably not going to lose that point. It's just a really, really powerful card. Next up, we have the Harrowing for 6 energy and 2 power. This is a spell that says play a unit from your trash, ignoring its energy cost. You must still pay its power cost.
So here we are, first real reanimator spell. The problem with this is, as strong as these spells are, it does cost 6. So that's the first issue I see with it, which is that's a little more expensive than you want Reanimator spells to be. Now, that's about half of your total energy pools. You can bring something back up to 12 with this, which is okay, sure, that's fine. It does cost 2 power, and then you still have to pay the power from the thing you're bringing back. So where is this different from the Soulgorger? Well, the Soulgorger, even though it costs 2 more, gives you a 5 body, and I can tell you that 2 energy is certainly worth the 5 body in that case. Here, where this one's upside is if there's something that's so impactful that if you summon it like a turn earlier, it's just going to win you the game or have that much more of an impact. That's where this card gets a lot better. The problem is right now, something like that doesn't really exist in the game, and you don't really want to be spending close to 4 power on when you only have 6 out there, unless you're going to be winning the game. And because of that, this not making the body, I don't see it being worth it. However, I do see the potential where if they do eventually print something that's just like, you summon this on like turn 3 of the game or whatever, you just win, then I could see this card getting a lot better. But I would hope that they would not design a card like that knowing that this already exists. I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 10. It's still a Reanimator spell. It still has potential to be good. I just think the lack of the body kind of turns me off from it. I'd much rather have a 5 body for 2 more energy than I would have nothing for 2 less.
Yeah, I like 5 for the Harrowing. Like Alex said, if you've watched our body review, we talked about how Volibear is a 12 cost that when he hits the board doesn't really do all that much. Like, he's just a big beat stick. And big beat sticks don't win the game, especially when they can just be deleted for like 2 mana from like a Call the Weak or a Hidden Blade or something. So you really do want an effect that's really going to immediately impact the board and swing the game heavily in your favor, and we just don't have any bombs like that yet. I imagine we'll get some, ideally not ones that break the game, but just more impactful on plays, and this card might be better and better as the game progresses.
Well. How the turntables.
Next up, we have Tideturner for 2 energy and 2 might. This is a hidden unit that says when you play me, you may choose a friendly unit, move me to its location, and it to my original location.
This is pretty much the definition, the dictionary definition of a combat trick. I mean, this guy is... He's funny. I like him, actually. He's very tricky. He's a card that can definitely get you if you're not expecting him. But I do think the downside here is that a lot of his value is the element of surprise with many of these hidden cards, but this one especially. But he can be hard to play around if you're playing a deck that has a high density of hidden cards because of how he modifies combat, especially when you have a bigger board and you have a lot of options as to what you want to switch in and out with him. I still think this card is pretty good, though, overall. He's still a 2 for 2, which is on rate, so if you just needed to play this guy as a body on 2, he's totally fine. If you set him, he's a very powerful effect where he can kind of do these like weird combat trick maths and really throw your opponent off. I like this guy. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. I think he's pretty solid. He's as good as a 2-drop gets.
Yeah, definitely a very versatile 2-drop. One of the best cases that I can imagine for this guy is that he can also help you just dodge removal spells. So again, we've talked about how a lot of removal spells hit things specifically at battlefields. So if you are going to have a guy that is going to die, you can use Tideturner to switch locations with it if it's at a different battlefield or somewhere else. It's kind of tricky to set up those scenarios, but again, if you have the element of surprise, if your opponent isn't seeing this coming, then there's a lot of ways that you can mess up their plays, and I think he's pretty strong. I'll give him a 6. Next up, we have Twisted Fate Gambler for 4 energy. This is a 4 might unit that says when I attack, reveal the top card of your Ruin deck, then recycle it. Do one of the following based on its domain. If it is Fury, deal 2 to an enemy unit here and 1 to all other enemy units here. If it is Mind, you draw 1, and if it is Order, you stun an enemy unit.
So the biggest issue you'll notice with this card immediately is that because it's in purple, you can't actually get 2 of these effects at once because you wouldn't be able to play this. So the only way So where this card potentially gets better is if you're able to play this in a deck that is able to play at least 2 of the color combinations listed on here in addition to himself, or there's some sort of multicolored rune in the future. I don't know why they would print that or where that would be, but at a baseline, I don't think this card is very good. A 4/4 for no power is fine, but I think these effects are kind of just like especially when you consider that your power base is probably going to have to be made up of at least half of another color or some number of another color that's not listed on this effect, aka purple. So I think that this guy is very limited by that. I think, like I said, if multicolor gets better, then this guy could be really crazy, because if you're able to consistently pull off multiple of these, it could get a lot better. Although you only get to do one of the following, so you're still limited. You can't ever actually get multiple of these effects, but I do think having that option would make this card a little better. I'm going to give this guy like a 5 out of 10. He is still a 4/4 with no power with a little bit of upside, so he can't be that bad at a baseline, but I don't think this is very good.
Yeah, I think that they just went too hard with the flavor on this one. Like, TF in the game is all about, you know, having 3 different colored cards, and each color card does something different. And so, like, flavor wise, this guy is really cool, you know, depending on what you're doing. But if you think about it in the sense of how Riftbound is played, if you have purple ruins, this guy is going to be bad, because like sometimes you're just going to reveal a purple ruin and nothing happens at all. So unless you're playing him in maybe say like a Jinx deck that's like mono red, and so you can play this guy because he doesn't have a power cost and you can guarantee that he's triggering one of these abilities every single turn guaranteed, then that might be pretty good, like some mono blue Teemo or a mono red Jinx. We actually don't even have a Order and Chaos leader yet. These are like opposing color pairs in the current color wheel. So like we actually don't have any legends that even have that. So I don't even know why they gave him that ability. I mean, maybe just a little hint of like what we're getting in the future someday. But they've already, even for set 2, they've already announced that there's no opposing color pairs. So we're not going to get to ever see him stun an enemy unit for a really long time. It just seems like they really wanted to go with the flavor here, and at least they gave him a serviceable body. I think it's a 5 for me as well. Next up, we have Invert Timelines. This is a 3 energy and 1 power spell that says each player discards their hand, then draws 4.
A good old bad Wheel of Fortune. So these effects are always interesting because they're somewhere between unplayable and absolutely broken a lot of the times. Now, 3 for this effect and a power is kind of a lot because there's no tempo involved in this, and this is a tempo-based game. However, if there ever is a deck where you're just looking to pitch your whole hand and then cycle through to a new hand and draw up and the resources don't matter, then this gets a lot better. Right now we do have discard-based decks, but they're not really looking to redraw their hands for the cost of 3, especially when a lot of them are more aggressive decks. Where this does get to maybe see some play is a sideboard card versus decks that are just trying to like combo decks that are trying to assemble a very specific hand and then pop off. And on both sides, actually, if you are the combo deck and you just want to cycle to a new hand, you can do that. If you're playing against the combo deck, you can brick their hand. Cards like this have potential. It's not there yet, but I do see it. I'm going to give this card like a 5 out of 10, and I see the potential for this card to get a lot better. These effects are just, they always get to be very powerful. This one's limited by its cost more than anything. Obviously, 4 cards is not a lot of cards, but I still think it's not like 7 like Wheel of Fortune or a Whole New World if you play Lorcana, but it's still a very powerful effect with potential. So I'm going to say 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I almost want to give it 6, but I think 5 is fine for the inverse timelines. Essentially, this card is, I mean, it's not exactly a judge from Pokemon, but I like to think of it more for the disruption capabilities. Like Alex said, like if they're playing a combo deck, or even if they're just a deck that like draws a lot of cards and like gets a lot of value that way, like sometimes you could just like, if you can dump your hand out really quickly and your opponent's still amassing resources, and then you could just play this card to like reset them, you know, basically make them go down 3 cards, as well as like trashing the hand that they've been holding. That can be pretty strong. This also does have some synergies with that gear that we saw earlier, the scrap heap. So like if you have a bunch of scrap heaps in your hand, you can actually discard those, and like your opponent will draw 4, and you discarded like 2 scrap heaps, so you'll actually be drawing 6. So there's some cute stuff you can do there. I do see this mostly as a sideboard card right now. Maybe it'll see more play in the main in the future. Next up, we have Jinx Rebel for 5 energy and a power. This is a 5 might unit that says when you discard 1 or more cards, ready me and give me +1 might this turn.
So this card's alright. It's a 5 for 5, but it does cost a power. So it is sort of on rate. When you discarding cards to ready her, I mean, this deck already kind of wants to do this. But if your champion doesn't do this, there's a good chance that you're actually paying resources to get this ability off. And she already costs 5. So like if you want to be able to attack with her the turn she comes in play, you're going to end up spending at least probably 7 resources to pull this off, which is pretty expensive for a card that seems like it wants to be in an aggressive deck. Now, if you could do this, if you could discard cards with your champion at the cost of no energy, then it would be a little bit better. But I do still think this is kind of slow. It's a 5 for 5. It's an aggro deck. You'd rather this be cheaper. The other Jinx is kind of just the de facto Jinx. If you're playing Jinx as a legend, I think this card's okay. The +1, I don't think is going to matter all that much. It's fine because you can retreat it from points too. So if it is in a point, you can you can play something to like ready it, move it back. Like if this had ganking, I could see it being a lot better. You play it, it readies, you attack somewhere, you play something that discards, then you move it to the other point. Or if you could give it ganking, like if you're playing MF, maybe this gets better. But I don't think this is that great, to be honest. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I don't think this card is all that good.
Yeah, I think it's an okay card. I'll probably give it like a 5, but I do agree that I don't think I would ever use this as my chosen champion. If I was playing Jinx, I have started to see this card creep into some lists, but I'm really not too big on it. Like, yes, if you already have like for instance, maybe that 2-drop that can discard a card and draw a card in play, then you can ready this right away and it kind of becomes like a Darius type unit for you. And if you have ways to discard a lot of cards and draw a lot of cards, like maybe with the card that we just saw, then you can like get a bunch of triggers off of this and make her really huge. But I just don't think that that's what the deck wants to be doing or have access to in your champion zone most times. So even if you are playing this, you're probably not playing it as your champion. I don't think you get enough payout for the discard synergies with this card, so I think 5 is fine.
I cast you out! Unclean spirit!
Shove it up your ass!
Next up, we have Possession for 8 energy and 3 power. This is an action spell that says, choose an enemy unit at a battlefield, take control of it, and recall it.
This is an interesting one. So this is our first kind of brain control, mind control, change of heart, whatever you want to call it, type card. It is action speed, which is nice, so you can play it when something tries to move into a battlefield. It is extremely costly, though, with for 8 energy and 3 power. I mean, that is a lot. And I understand taking control of your opponent's things is a very expensive effect, but I also think that its restrictions kind of hold it back. It can only take something at a battlefield, which I think like that holds back some of its potential. It also recalls the unit, which I guess it kind of would have to, otherwise it wouldn't work. So that sort of makes sense to me. I just think this card is very, very costly, and there'd have to be a very specific use case. Like you'd have to be sealing something very good to pay 8 energy and 3 power for something like this, even taking a unit from your opponent. It's probably best use case is against like big bomb style decks, like some of these Aurora decks where you actually get to steal something that is worth your 8 energy, but I don't think this card is very good. I think it's so costly for what you're getting out of it. I would give this card like a 4 out of 10. Maybe it gets better, but I just like these types of effects. I get it. I get why they made it cost a lot because these are very powerful type of effects, but I think this just costs too much.
Yeah, I could see it maybe as like a sideboard card or something. It's actually kind of funny you mentioned Change of Heart. I don't know if you noticed in the flavor text they actually say
yeah, it's just Change of Heart.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Possessions, I want to like this card. I normally do like cards that do this kind of effect, but I do think that its restrictions hold it back a little too much. They did want to balance this, which is probably a good thing overall. It is worth noting that if for whatever reason your opponent was like holding the point with a unit that is readied, this doesn't say like recall it exhausted, so you can recall it readied and then like take the point right back with their own unit. That's kind of funny if that ever happens, but yeah, I just think it's probably like a 5 for me for the potential maybe in the future, but I don't see it coming out of the sideboard. Next up, we've got Seal of Discord for 0 and a power. This is a reaction that says add a chaos power.
It's another seal, and if you've seen these videos before, they're all getting a 5 out of me guys, these aren't Moxes. Like, they're good, but they're predicated on seeing them very early. When you see them late, they just feel like straight bricks. Only certain decks want to play these, very power-intensive early ones. Again, like, I've gone over these cards a million times. It's a 5 out of 10 for me. They're fine. They're not great. They have applications, but I as of right now, I don't see a reason to play these in a majority of decks.
Yep, another 5 for me. This is in Jinx's colors, so you know you might get some bonus points there if you're playing Jinx, but typically Jinx isn't even playing this seal because, like Alex said, there's just not a lot of situations where you need them.
Then there is nothing left for me in Ionia.
Even the wind has a path, brother.
Finally, we have Yasuo Wind Rider for 5 energy and a power. This is a 4 might unit with ganking that says the third time I move in a turn, you score 1 point.
So it's a 5 for 4, a little understated. It does cost a power. He does have ganking, which is really going to feed into his effect, but he has one of the more unique effects we've seen in this game so far, in that he is one of the only units that exists currently that actually lets you score a point outside of game mechanics. So this is really interesting because his deck is kind of based around doing this, and he does kind of break the game in that he is able to score more than 2 points a turn. However, I think it is kind of hard to move this guy 3 times in a turn, even with all the move effects that purple has. There's just a lot that can go wrong, especially with a lot of control decks in format. He is at a 4/2, which is kind of vulnerable to a lot of the more popular removal. I think this guy is fine, and I think his unique line of text plus the ganking do kind of give him some points there, no pun intended. But I am probably going to give this guy I think he's like a 5. He's probably actually, I'm going to give him a 4 actually, because we're rating in a vacuum, and this guy can't really see play outside of like a very specific build around. And I don't even think that build around has the payoff to be worth it yet. So I'm going to give this guy a 4 out of 10. I just do not think he's very good.
Yeah, for sure in a vacuum, I think 4 is fine for this card. And like you were saying, even outside of the vacuum, even in the Yasuo deck, like, it's not very easy to move 3 different times. Like, we were already talking about Kayn earlier and how, like, moving twice can be a chore. So, like, you have ganking and you have your legend move, and so those are 2 moves. So you still need to have another card like a Ride the Wind or something else to get that last move to actually take the point. So, like, yes, this plus Ride the Wind can score you a bunch of points theoretically, and it's cool that you can, like, cheat the system. Like, in theory, say your opponent is, like, stocked up on 1 point and you're at 7, you need that final point, but you can't take that other point. There's no shot you can take it. You can at least, like, move this guy into that point, then, like, use Ride the Wind to move him back, and then move him back to that point, and now you could still win, even though normally you couldn't take that last point through conquering. You could still win through Yasuo. So, like, in the Yasuo deck, it does have a few niche scenarios where you can actually get free points out of this guy, and it might see some play there as, like, their chosen champion if they're really building around it. But in a vacuum, and just, like, you're never using this card, so it's just a 5 or 4 with ganking, and that's, like, below rate. So 4 is fine for him. And that's going to conclude our Chaos video. Let us know if you disagree with any of our ratings in the comments below, and make sure to check out our future final video, which we're going to be covering the order cards. If you guys like what we're doing, please subscribe for more, and we will see you guys next time.